A lot of people remember Vettel for his embarrassing spins, crashes, and the humiliating nickname Spin Bastion. But that was only the second half of his career. Before 2014, Vettel was unstoppable. He won 4 Drivers' Championships in a row and was truly on course to be the greatest ever in Formula One history. Sebastian Vettel wasn't just fast, he was on a different level entirely. During those 4 seasons, Vettel shattered records, won 44% of Formula One races, and took pole more than half the time.
Keeps it in and a long run down to the finish line for a great pole position. Vettel takes the Grand Prix victory.
You beauties, well done. You've won the Singapore Grand Prix again. You're back in this championship, well done.
On a Saturday, Vettel was basically untouchable on the F1 grid, so much so that fans would rather see any other than Vettel win pole.
Finally, something other than a Red Bull on pole position.
He was very aggressive, almost violent when entering corners, something that many other drivers couldn't do. Vettel would brake very late, then turn the car violently into the apex. He wanted the rear end loose on entry, just enough to make the car point towards the exit. Then he would literally nail the throttle down when he got the car straight. For this, he needed a car that was stable at the rear, which the 2010 to 2013 Red Bull was brilliant at. The car was also designed to support Vettel with more rear downforce and traction, courtesy of the blown diffuser. The blown diffusers on those Red Bull cars were absolute game changers. With the genius of Adrian Newey, Red Bull channeled exhaust gases underneath the car to the diffuser, which generated massive amounts of downforce even when Vettel was off the throttle or braking. Often the rear end was kept planted by the blown diffuser when Vettel braked very late into the corner, almost like an aerodynamic safety net. It was a risky technique. One simple mistake could send him spinning into the wall, but when done right, it made Vettel unstoppable. The technique allowed Vettel to straighten the car sooner, use full power sooner, and slam on the throttle on exit from each turn. James Allen explained it perfectly. One interesting observation is that Red Bull has a setting on the engine whereby the ignition is retarded, which maintains exhaust gas pressure even when the driver lifts off the throttle. This maintains the performance of the blown diffuser and keeps the downforce up when it's most needed. It's not something you can do for more than a lap or two, as it damages the engine, but it gives that vital fraction of a second which keeps Red Bull ahead of the rest in qualifying. Vettel's genius lay in his ability to time his throttle application to keep those exhaust gases feeding the diffuser. He would slam on the throttle mid-corner, causing downforce to ensure wheel spin and rotation at the same time. It was a very hard skill to perform, and Vettel was better at it than anybody.
Sebastian Vettel squeezes through past Nico Rosberg. It's not often you get past any car going into turn 10.
The result was stunning. Between 2010 and 2013, Vettel won 34 races and 4 titles in a row. It was that kind of dominance that made him loved and hated by fans. Some loved his dominance and unique technique, while others were tired of seeing the same person take the podium at the end of every season. But that dominance didn't look like it was going to end anytime soon. Adrian Newey's aerodynamic brilliance had created the perfect car for Vettel, and he pulled every 10th out of it. He won 15 poles and 11 wins in 2011 alone. Soon, fans began to fear that he was going to break every single Formula One record.
Let's not forget, you are the youngest world champion in Formula One history. You're allowed to cry, mate. You're allowed.
3 times a world champion. It is Sebastian Vettel for Red Bull.
You're the world champion!
But that was about to change pretty soon.
But that could be about to change, as a new set of regulations turns Formula One on its head.
The new FIA 2014 regulations banned the blown diffuser. From 2014, the FIA changed the positioning of the exhaust, which reduced the steady rear downforce that Vettel had been used to over the previous 4 years.
Next year, you're going to have a single tailpipe that's going to run straight through here, down the back of the impact structure and out the back, so you're not going to have any ability to do any exhaust blowing.
If you apply the throttle a little bit too quickly, because of the torque, you are going to lose the rear end, so it's a very different feeling.
Just like that, the technical basis of Vettel's driving vanished overnight, and the safety net disappeared. And suddenly, when he was attacking every corner entry the way that he had trained himself to do for 4 years, the rear end just snapped away from him, and there was no blown diffuser to catch the slide.
Oh, and there is the Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel.
somehow managing to stop and control the car.
The 2014 season was a disaster for Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo, in his first year in Red Bull, beat Vettel by every available metric.
Ricciardo pulls around to the outside. He's not going to give an inch here. Sebastian Vettel locks up. Ricciardo just has to back out of the move.
While Ricciardo quickly got used to the new regulations, Vettel struggled to cope. Ricciardo outscored Vettel 238 points to 167 and won 3 races compared to Vettel's 0. It wasn't even close.
Enjoy the podium, this time you get the points as well, I'm sure.
Vettel's aggressive style didn't help him either. Despite starting some races brilliantly, his tendency to wear through tires quite easily meant that the car started to deteriorate towards the end of each race. The media blamed the driver who'd lost his edge or couldn't handle the pressure anymore. But the reality wasn't so straightforward. Ricciardo's smoother and more measured approach to driving suited the new regulations better. He didn't need to rely on an aggressive corner entry as Vettel did. And with the blown diffusers out, Vettel's technique often sent him spinning on exiting a turn. Engines also played a crucial role. The switch from the more familiar V8 engines to the hybrid V6 turbos made Vettel work harder. He wasn't familiar with their additional torque and brake-by-wire systems. These new power units provided massive and instant torque low down in the rev range, but the old V8s had delivered power progressively, which Vettel could modulate.
V8 normally aspirated engine to a 1.6-litre V6 turbocharged engine.
Remember, the key to Vettel's technique was to apply the throttle early out of corners. But with this new instant torque engine, any imperfection in his timing would break traction and send him spinning.
Oh, and there is the Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel somehow managing to stop and control the car before he made major contact with the pit wall.
The technique that made the old V8s unstoppable was a liability with the hybrids. He had to entirely rewire his muscle memory, and that's not something you can do overnight. After having a terrible 2014 season, it was time for the move everyone already expected: Ferrari. It was his childhood dream, an opportunity to follow in the steps of Michael Schumacher and bring the championship back to Maranello. And for some time, it was looking good. Though he had issues getting accustomed to the car, his speed was probably too hard to ignore. But like with Red Bull, he struggled to adapt once again. This sent him spinning a couple times. But that's not to say that Vettel didn't have some standout moments with Ferrari. Between 2015 and 2016, Vettel won a couple races and displayed a glimpse of his old genius. But it came at a time when Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton were flying.
It's the US Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton. It's a 1-2 for Mercedes.
Still, going into 2017, Ferrari seemed to finally have a winning car. This was Vettel's chance to go for a 5th championship, and people thought maybe, just maybe, this was going to be Vettel's year. Except there was one little problem. Ferrari's car design revealed all the flaws in Vettel's post-2014 struggles. The SF70H and the SF71H had a fundamental problem. They were incredibly fast, but had an extremely narrow operating window. The tail end was sensitive to yaw, meaning that it did not do well with Vettel's aggressive driving technique. So, when Vettel attempted to turn the car aggressively on entry, the rear would break away with a violent snap. His teammate Charles Leclerc, by contrast, had a smoother way of entering corners that was less dependent on stability at the rear. He was able to work with the Ferrari's characteristics because he didn't demand the same things out of the car that Vettel did. That's why, when Leclerc joined in 2019, he adapted to it almost immediately, while Vettel struggled more than ever. And that's when things began to go wrong. Everyone remembers Vettel crashing out of the race in Germany 2018. Vettel was leading his home Grand Prix when the rain started coming. He pushed too hard on the throttle, lost the rear, and crashed out.
Sebastian Vettel, he has been leading almost from start to finish, but now he's out of this race.
It was a championship-defining moment. Had he won that race, the 2018 title could have gone down to the wire. Instead, Hamilton cruised to another championship, and the confidence of four-time race winner Sebastian Vettel suffered a massive blow after the crash. The Italian press were all over him. La Repubblica asked whether or not Vettel had lost his talent. Corriere della Sera wrote that Ferrari needed a successful driver, meaning that Vettel wasn't one anymore, and things only got worse from then. Monza 2018.
With Lewis Hamilton going through the chicane, Hamilton came off best. Sebastian Vettel losing places, he's down in 18th.
Bahrain 2019.
Hamilton goes round the long way, round the outside once again. He's off the track once again, and Sebastian Vettel's lost it.
Canada 2019, where he received a controversial penalty for rejoining unsafely after going off. And then, a frustrated Vettel let out that iconic radio rant.
Hamilton really had to jam on the brakes, didn't he?
Well, if I was a steward, I wouldn't be penalising that, but let's see what they say.
Each mistake fed into the next, and Vettel's confidence was starting to take a real hit. He started second-guessing, started wondering if he was really as good as he thought, and that reflected in his performances. His 2020 performance was the worst of them all. He finished 13th in driver standings after some terrible performances that season. But by all means, Ferrari in 2020 was a disaster. The SF1000 was slow, unstable, and totally undrivable. The team had also begun to prioritize Leclerc over Vettel, leaving him a shell of the confident champion he once was. Then, Ferrari decided not to renew his contract, and Vettel was left without a team. Going into the 2021 season, Vettel wasn't just looking for a team. He was looking for anyone crazy enough to bet everything on him. And the only team willing to take a chance on him was Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll promised money, ambition, and a road back to competitiveness. It was supposed to be Vettel's redemption arc, his final shot at a title he hadn't touched for 8 years. But Aston Martin never delivered. In 2021 and 2022, Vettel showed occasional flashes of brilliance, like his podium in Baku or his defensive masterclass in Austin. But most weekends, he was fighting in the midfield. Vettel's focus shifted to environmental activism and social causes. He had found purpose outside the cockpit, and you could see his heart wasn't in Formula One anymore. So, when he announced his retirement at the 2022 Hungarian Grand Prix, it wasn't entirely shocking. The sport had moved on from the regulations that once made him great, and Vettel couldn't or wouldn't completely change his style.
I hereby announce my retirement from Formula One by the end of the 2022 season.
But there's no denying how good he was. In his prime, he was unstoppable, but his technique was too specific, too optimized for one particular set of regulations. So when the FIA banned blown diffusers and introduced hybrid engines, Vettel's technique just wouldn't work again, and his inability to adapt his driving style ultimately killed his career. And here's the painful reality. If Vettel had retired in 2013 after his fourth title, he'd be remembered as an all-time great without question. Instead, his later struggles have created conversations around his quality. A lot of fans are left wondering if he was really that good, or was it all just Adrian Newey's car? The answer is, he was that good, but only within a very specific context. Vettel was the perfect driver for the blown diffuser era, a technical genius who maximized a revolutionary piece of technology better than anyone else. But when that technology disappeared, so did his advantage. And in the end, that made all the difference. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Vettel's career, smash that subscribe button and check out our next video right here.